My name is Erica, and for the past 10 years, I've poured my heart and soul into becoming one of the youngest and most successful hotel managers in this city. I've turned struggling establishments into award-winning destinations, my name synonymous with excellence and five-star service. But the truth is, the biggest success I ever orchestrated wasn't in a boardroom or a luxury suite. It was at a wedding, what was supposed to be my wedding. I just discovered the real reason why my own sister was trying on a wedding dress that looked suspiciously like mine a week before my big day. That day, I had no idea that one forgotten phone would unravel a tapestry of deceit, so intricate, so personal, it would make your skin crawl. They thought I was just the reliable, slightly boring older sister, the one who always did the right thing, the one they could easily fool. They thought I'd never uncover the truth about the man I loved, the sister I cherished, and the $70,000 life savings I'd willingly handed over. For a long time, I felt invisible. My accomplishments overshadowed my heart, a little too trusting. There was a moment standing in my pristine, silent apartment, the evidence splayed out before me, where I felt like my entire identity crumbled, not into dust, but into a million sharp, glittering shards of ice. The betrayal was so profound it felt like it was rewriting my DNA. But what they didn't know was that beneath the accommodating smile and the perfectly pressed uniform, a different kind of manager was waking up, one who was about to manage the hell out of the biggest con of her life. The story I'm about to tell you involves more than just a cheating fiancé and a backstabbing sister. It's about multiple truths, a web of lies so tangled it almost choked me, and the day everything came crashing down in the most spectacularly public way imaginable. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or betrayed by the very people who should have protected you, comment below and hit that subscribe button because you're not alone. Trust me, if you're someone who believes in loyalty and the devastating power of its absence, this story will change how you see family love and the sweet, sweet taste of justice forever. To understand how I, Erica, a meticulous, detail-oriented hotel manager, could have been so catastrophically blindsided, you need to understand the landscape of my life, particularly my family. I grew up in a comfortable, middle-class home in a bustling city neighborhood. My father was an accountant, a man of numbers and quiet routines, and my mother was a part-time librarian, a woman whose love for stories rarely translated into understanding the narrative of her own daughters. And then there was Kate, my younger sister. By 3 years, the undisputed sunshine of our family, while I often felt like the functional, necessary, but ultimately unexciting lampshade. From my earliest memories, the dynamics were set. I was the responsible one, the old soul. When I was 5, I meticulously organized my crayons by color spectrum. Kate, at 2, would gleefully snap them in half, and somehow this was framed as her artistic spirit. My carefully constructed Lego castles were just targets for her toddler rampages, met with indulgent chuckles from our parents. "Oh, Kate, such an active imagination." My protests were met with Erica. "She's just little. You're the big sister. Be understanding." That phrase became the soundtrack to my childhood. The favoritism wasn't malicious, not in a way I could point to and call cruel. It was more insidious, a constant, gentle current pulling all warmth and attention towards Kate. Here are a few examples that still sting. In 4th grade, I landed a small speaking role in the school play. I practiced my 3 lines with fierce dedication. My parents attended, but their post-show conversation was dominated by how adorable Kate looked in the audience, fidgeting in her seat. The following year, Kate was a silent sheep in the nativity play, buying off-key once. My parents recorded the entire thing, bought extra copies for relatives, and framed a picture of her in her fluffy costume. My academic awards displayed neatly on my desk gathered dust. My birthdays were pleasant, predictable affairs, a cake, a few sensible gifts. Kate's birthdays were events. One year, she decided she wanted a princess and pony party. My father, who normally grumbled about expenses, hired a pony for an hour to walk around our small backyard, and my mother spent weeks sewing a custom princess gown for Kate. For my equivalent milestone birthday that year, I received a new desk lamp because I was always studying. I consistently brought home straight A's. The reaction was a nod, "That's good, Erica." If Kate managed a B-, it was cause for celebration. "She's trying so hard. She's more of a people person, not a bookworm like you, Erica, and that's just fine," my mother would say, ruffling Kate's hair. The implication was clear. My achievements were expected, almost clinical, while Kate's mere efforts were heroic. By 10, I was responsible for my own laundry, helping with dinner, and supervising Kate when our parents were busy. Kate's primary responsibility was to be a kid. If her room was a disaster, it was creative chaos. If mine had a book out of place, I was getting sloppy. This double standard extended into our teenage years. I had a strict curfew. Kate's was more of a suggestion. When I was heartbroken over a teenage crush or stressed about exams, the advice was usually practical, a little distant. "You'll get over it or just study harder." When Kate cried because a friend didn't invite her to a sleepover, it was a family crisis. My mother would spend hours consoling her, often ending with a special treat or outing to cheer her up. I learned to self-soothe, to internalize my struggles. My parents weren't monsters. I believe they loved us both in their own way. My father, a man of few words, probably saw my quiet diligence as self-sufficiency. My mother, perhaps seeing a spark of her own unfulfilled vivaciousness in Kate, nurtured it excessively. Kate, for her part, absorbed this adoration like a sponge. She was charming, effervescent, and knew instinctively how to play to her audience. She wasn't deliberately cruel to me then. She was just blissfully unaware of the disparity, accustomed to being the center of her universe. She grew up believing she deserved the spotlight, while I learned to thrive in the shadows, finding my validation in tangible achievements rather than familial praise. I was the planner, the organizer, the one who remembered birthdays and anniversaries, the one who booked family vacations. My early talent for management was evident. I ran school fundraisers with an iron fist in a velvet glove, organized neighborhood cleanup drives, and always had the most meticulously planned study schedules. But at home, these were just Erica being Erica. My competence was taken for granted, almost a utility, while Kate's whims were indulged as signs of a sparkling personality. This upbringing forged in me a fierce independence and a deep-seated need to prove my worth through my work. If I couldn't be the favored daughter, I would be the most successful one. It also, unfortunately, left me with a blind spot the size of Texas when it came to genuine unconditional affection and a desperate unspoken yearning for it. I was a fortress of capability on the outside, but inside there was a young girl still wondering why being a silent sheep was more praiseworthy than earning a speaking role. This vulnerability, this crack in my armor, was exactly what Logan would later exploit with devastating precision. The emotional foundation was less of a foundation and more of a carefully constructed stage waiting for the right actor to play the leading man. And I unknowingly was desperate for the show to begin. The pattern of being overlooked, of my achievements paling in comparison to Kate's very existence, didn't just stay in childhood. It matured with us, becoming a recurring theme throughout our young adult lives. It was like a stuck record playing the same frustrating melody at every significant milestone. My high school graduation was a prime example. I was salutatorian, had a scholarship to a decent state university for hospitality management, and won a citywide award for a youth volunteer project I'd spearheaded. At my graduation party, small and mostly attended by my parents' friends, most of the conversation revolved around Kate's upcoming summer plans. A trip to the beach with friends funded, of course, by Mom and Dad. Kate needs a break. She's had such a stressful sophomore year, Mom announced, beaming, as Kate dramatically recounted a minor disagreement with her art teacher. My scholarship plaque sat on the gift table, largely ignored. My internal monologue was a bitter whisper. Stressful, try juggling AP classes, a part-time job, and 200 volunteer hours. University was my escape. I threw myself into my studies, relishing the anonymity and the merit-based environment. I graduated top of my class, secured an internship at a prestigious hotel chain, and started climbing the ladder. Each promotion, each successful project I managed was a small internal victory. I'd call home excited to share. "That's nice," dear Mom would say before launching into an anecdote about Kate's latest dating escapade or her struggles at the local diner where she'd started working part-time. Kate never stuck with anything for long. A series of short-lived courses, fleeting interests, and jobs she'd quit because they were boring or the manager didn't get her. Yet each of her whimsical pursuits was treated with a hopeful anticipation that my steady upward career trajectory never seemed to inspire. One particularly galling incident occurred when I was 28. I'd just been promoted to assistant general manager of a flagship hotel downtown, a huge step. I'd invited my parents and Kate out to a celebratory dinner at a nice restaurant. So my father began, after I'd shared my news, this new role. More hours, I suppose. "You're always working, Erica." "It's a big responsibility, Dad, but it's what I've worked for," I said, trying to keep the pride in my voice. Kate chimed in, swirling her wine. "I don't know how you do it, Ricky. All those boring meetings and spreadsheets. I'd die." She then launched into a dramatic tale about a customer at the diner who'd complimented her on her aura. My mother clasped her hands. "Oh, Kate, that's wonderful. You have such a special energy. Maybe you should look into aura reading." There was a lady at the community center. The rest of the dinner was about Kate's potential new career as an aura reader. My promotion was a forgotten appetizer. I remember staring at my reflection in the polished surface of the table, my smile feeling like a mask. Why do I even try, I thought. My biggest achievements are just background noise to her smallest whims. The psychological impact was a slow erosion of my desire to share a gradual retreat into myself, where my successes were my own, untainted by their lukewarm reception. Then there was Sophie, my best friend since college. She was a fiery redhead, a graphic designer with a sharp wit and an even sharper sense of loyalty. Sophie saw it all. She was the one I'd vent to, the one who'd celebrate my wins with genuine enthusiasm. "Honestly, Erica," she said after one particularly frustrating family visit, "I don't know how you tolerate it. Your sister could set the kitchen on fire making toast, and your parents would praise her for exploring alternative cooking methods. It's just how they are." I'd sigh, though Sophie's outrage was a balm. "How they are is infuriating," she'd counter. "You deserve to be celebrated, not tolerated." A dialogue from a typical Sunday dinner about a year before Logan entered my life sums it up. "Mom, Kate. Darling, did you hear back about that pottery class you wanted to take, Kate?" Flipping her hair, "Oh yeah, I got in. It's going to be amazing. I'm thinking of making like really organic lumpy mugs. Very rustic chic. Dad, that's wonderful, Pumpkin. Your mother and I were thinking we could help you get a little kiln for the garage eventually, if you really take to it." Me. Actually, I had some news too. My hotel won the city's Best Service Award for the 3rd year in a row. They're giving me a significant bonus, and there's talk of a GM position opening up at the new boutique hotel. Mom. "Oh, that's very good, Erica. More work for you, I imagine. Don't burn yourself out. Kate, will these mugs be dishwasher safe?" The sting of it was familiar, a dull ache I'd learned to live with. I was the reliable, sturdy oak, while Kate was the delicate, captivating orchid that required constant tending and admiration. The most recent major disappointment just months before I met Logan was when I put a down payment on my own small condo. It was a huge achievement for me, something I'd saved for meticulously for years. I invited my family over for a small housewarming. Kate arrived late, flustered, announcing she'd accidentally dinged her car, an older model my parents helped her buy and maintain. The entire evening then became about the car. The cost of repairs, how unfair parking was in her neighborhood, how stressful it all was for her. My new home, the symbol of my independence and hard work, became the backdrop for Kate's latest minor drama. I remember standing in my new kitchen, a glass of untouched champagne in my hand, watching my parents fuss over Kate and feeling a profound sense of loneliness. It was in this state of quiet resignation of being perpetually on the periphery of my own family's affection that I became exquisitely vulnerable to someone who would promise me the spotlight, the adoration, the feeling of being truly seen. Little did I know the man who would offer me that was about to bring a wrecking ball to the carefully constructed, if somewhat lonely, life I had built. Life has a funny way of throwing you a lifeline when you least expect it, or in my case, what appeared to be a lifeline. The most recent disappointment over my condo had settled into a familiar ache when Logan Carmichael strode into my life, or rather, into the lobby of the Grand Alistair, the hotel I managed. It began, as many hotel stories do, with a complaint. A minor issue. His suite's air conditioning was a degree too warm. I personally went up to address it, expecting a typically fussy VIP guest. Instead, I found Logan. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a suit that whispered rather than shouted expense. His smile was disarming, his eyes a warm hazel that seemed to hold a genuine apology for causing trouble. "I'm so sorry to be a bother," he said, his voice smooth and cultured. "It's just, I'm here for some rather intense crypto investment meetings and I need a clear head." We talked for a few minutes after the AC was adjusted. He was charming, witty, and surprisingly down-to-earth for someone who casually mentioned multi-million-dollar crypto deals. He asked about my job, listened with an attentiveness I hadn't realized I craved, and before I knew it, he was asking me to dinner to properly thank me for saving him from a stuffy room and a potentially disastrous business day. I hesitated. Professional boundaries. But his charm was potent. I said yes. Our first proper date was at a cozy, upscale Italian restaurant. Logan was captivating. He spoke of his modest beginnings, his ambition, his passion for the volatile world of cryptocurrency, making it sound like a thrilling adventure. He painted himself as a self-made man, a visionary. He asked about my dreams, my passions. For the first time, in what felt like forever, I was the sole focus of someone's attention, and it was intoxicating. The next few months were a whirlwind. Flowers, surprise weekend trips, thoughtful little gifts. Logan was everything I hadn't known I was missing. He celebrated my successes at work with champagne and genuine pride. He called my parents charming after a brief, slightly awkward introductory dinner, and even seemed to find Kate's scatterbrained nature endearing. He was in short perfect. Too perfect, a tiny voice in the back of my head sometimes whispered, but I'd quickly silence it. I was finally deliriously happy. 3 months into our relationship, during a candlelit dinner on a rooftop overlooking the city, Logan got down on one knee. "Erica," he said, his eyes shining, "you're the most incredible woman I've ever met. You're smart, beautiful, driven, and you see me for who I am. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" The diamond was stunning, a classic solitaire that sparkled almost as brightly as my unshed tears. I said yes without a moment's hesitation. Wedding planning began almost immediately, and Logan, to my surprise, wanted to be heavily involved. "I want to give you the wedding of your dreams, darling," he'd said. "Let me handle the big stuff. My treat." He talked about a lavish affair, something befitting a woman like you. I had a substantial nest egg $70,000 I'd painstakingly saved over the years initially for a bigger property down payment, but this felt like an even better investment. An investment in our future. When Logan mentioned a specific high-end wedding planner and venue that required a significant upfront deposit, I readily agreed to contribute my savings. "It's our wedding, Logan. I want to contribute." He'd kissed me then, telling me I was too good for him. The money was transferred to an account he'd set up for wedding expenses. Introducing Logan to my family more formally had been an interesting experience. My parents were clearly impressed by his apparent wealth and smooth talk. For once, I was the one bringing someone impressive into the family fold. "He seems very taken with you, Erica," my mother had said, a hint of surprise in her voice. "And so successful," my father added. "Cryptocurrency, you say? Very modern." Kate, however, was a little harder to read. She was overtly friendly, almost gushy, with Logan laughing a little too loudly at his jokes. "He's like so charming, Ricky," she'd said. "You totally scored." I dismissed her over-enthusiasm as typical Kate. The first wave of unease, a tiny crack in the perfect facade, appeared when Kate started asking very specific questions about the wedding budget. So, like, how much is all this costing? "That venue Logan mentioned is super expensive," she'd probed one afternoon when we were having coffee at the diner where she worked. Logan's handling most of it, but we're both contributing. It'll be beautiful, I'd replied a little defensively. She'd said, stirring her latte with unusual concentration. Cool. The second wave came a few weeks later. I'd gone dress shopping with Sophie. I found the one, an elegant, timeless A-line gown. A few days later, I was walking past a trendy, slightly more flamboyant bridal boutique in a different part of town when I saw Kate inside laughing with a sales assistant and holding up a wedding dress. It wasn't identical to mine, but it was a similar silhouette, perhaps a touch more ostentatious. My heart did a weird flutter. She's just looking maybe for a friend, I told myself. Or maybe she's just being Kate dreaming. But it felt off. The third wave of conflict, more internal this time, was about the wedding planning itself. Logan had indeed taken charge. He'd report back on meetings with vendors, show me glossy brochures, but I was rarely included in the actual decisions. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it, darling. I want it to be a surprise, a gift, he'd say. My managerial instincts were screaming that something was wrong. Lack of transparency, no contracts for me to review. But I was so caught up in the romance, so desperate to believe in this fairy tale, that I pushed my concerns down. He'd even set up a joint email for wedding correspondence, but he mostly managed it. My parents, particularly my mother, seemed to be struggling with this shift in family dynamics. Their favoritism towards Kate was so ingrained. During a family dinner, my mother said, "It's just, Erica, you're usually so in control of things. It's strange to see you letting Logan handle everything." This was where understanding my parents' own backstory helped, if only a little. My mother grew up in a family where her older sister was the brilliant, successful one, and she was always the pretty one. She'd married young, putting her own ambitions aside. I think in a way she saw herself in Kate, someone who deserved to be cherished, and perhaps a little spoiled, while her expectations for me were colored by her own sister's competence, which she both admired and perhaps resented. My father, on the other hand, came from a family that valued stoicism and hard work above all. He likely saw my independence as a strength that needed less nurturing, whereas Kate's perceived vulnerability triggered his protective instincts. Their actions weren't born of malice, but of their own unexamined histories and biases. It didn't excuse the hurt, but it offered a sliver of context. The fourth wave, and the one that truly began to fray my nerves, was Kate's increasingly possessive behavior around Logan. If we were all together, she'd find ways to sit next to him, to engage him in intense whispered conversations, often giggling. She started dressing more provocatively when she knew he'd be around. I mentioned it to Sophie. "Am I crazy, Soph? Or is Kate acting weird with Logan?" Sophie, ever blunt, frowned. "She's definitely laying it on thick. Maybe she has a little crush on her future brother-in-law. Or maybe she's just jealous you're the center of attention for once." That last comment stung because it felt true. The stakes were now incredibly high. The wedding was 6 weeks away. Invitations were out. My $70,000 was gone, supposedly tied up in deposits. My entire future, my happiness felt entwined with this man and this wedding. My internal transformation was beginning, but it wasn't one of empowerment yet. It was a slow dawning of anxiety, a growing dread that I couldn't quite name. Allies like Sophie were my lifeline, offering sanity checks. Enemies I still couldn't bring myself to truly label Kate as one. And Logan was in my mind, the loving fiancé. The cliffhanger, the moment that pushed my unease into full-blown suspicion, happened during what was supposed to be my bridal shower, organized by Sophie and reluctantly Kate. Kate was late as usual. When she finally arrived, she looked pale and flustered. She was wearing a new, rather expensive-looking silk blouse. Later, when I was opening gifts, my aunt asked Kate if she was feeling all right. Kate mumbled something about a stomach bug, but as she reached for a glass of water, the loose sleeve of her blouse fell back. On her wrist, I saw a delicate gold bracelet I had never seen before. It was identical to one Logan had shown me online weeks ago, one he said he was thinking of getting for someone special as a thank you gift for helping with wedding stress. He'd never mentioned who. My blood ran cold. That bracelet wasn't a casual purchase. My eyes met Sophie's across the room, and she raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. The air crackled with unspoken questions. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning, and the truth was far more venomous than a suspected crush or a piece of jewelry. The image of that gold bracelet on Kate's wrist haunted me for days. It was a tiny glittering symbol of a betrayal I couldn't yet comprehend, but felt deep in my bones. The carefully constructed facade of my perfect life was showing serious cracks. The breaking point, the moment the entire charade shattered, came unexpectedly, as such moments often do. It was a Tuesday evening, about 4 weeks before the wedding. Logan had stayed over and rushed off to an early emergency crypto meeting, leaving his second phone, his business phone, on my nightstand. He was always cagey about this phone, but in his haste, he'd forgotten it. A little voice, the one I'd been suppressing for months, screamed at me, "Look, you need to know." My hands trembled as I picked it up. It wasn't password protected. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened his messages. The first few threads were innocuous enough businesslike. Then I saw it. Kate's name. My blood turned to ice. I clicked on the thread, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. The messages went back months, almost to the time Logan and I had gotten serious. Kate. He bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. She's so blissfully unaware. Logan, my little actress. You play the adoring sister so well. That $70K is as good as ours. Kate. Just make sure the wedding dress for me is spectacular. I want to look like a queen when I take her place. My breath hitched. Take my place. Then more recent messages. Kate, morning sickness is a bitch. You better appreciate what I'm going through for us. Logan. You'll be a beautiful, glowing bride, my love. And our baby will have the best start in life thanks to your wonderfully gullible sister, Kate. Don't call her that. It almost makes me feel bad. Almost. Just focus on the prize. Our wedding, our future. Logan. All going according to plan. She suspects nothing. The final deposits are paid. She even thinks that bracelet was for some random wedding helper. Pregnant. Kate was pregnant with Logan's child. They weren't just having an affair, they were plotting to steal my money, my wedding, my entire future, and humiliate me in the process. The wedding expenses account was undoubtedly their personal slush fund, my $70,000, my meticulously saved, hard-earned money. I scrolled further numbly, my vision blurring with tears. Then, I found another thread, this one with a contact named Kim. Do not answer. Curiosity, a morbid, desperate need to know the full extent of this treachery made me open it. Kim Logan, where the hell are you? Jacob needs new shoes and your child support is late again. You can't keep ignoring us. Kim, I know you're seeing someone. I saw the pictures online. Another one you're stringing along. When will you learn, Kim? If you don't contact me by the end of the week, my lawyer will be in touch. I'm done with your games. Logan was already married, or at least had been. He had a child, a son named Jacob. He was a con artist, a bigamist, a deadbeat dad. The realization hit me not like a freight train, but like the world silently imploding around me. My heart didn't just break, it shattered into 1,000 pieces, each one sharp with the agony of betrayal. The man I loved, the man I was about to marry, was a monster. And my own sister, my baby sister, whom I had, despite everything, always tried to protect and love, was his willing accomplice. The air in my pristine apartment felt thick, unbreathable. I sank to the floor, the phone clattering beside me, and a sound I barely recognized as my own ripped from my throat, a raw, guttural sob of pure anguish. For a long while, I just sat there amidst the ruins of my life. The shock was a physical weight pressing down on me. Then slowly something else began to stir within the consuming grief rage, a cold, clear, crystalline rage. They thought I was a fool. They thought I was weak. They had underestimated Erica, the hotel manager, the one who could handle any crisis, any demanding guest, any 5-alarm fire with calm, collected efficiency. My internal monologue shifted from victim to strategist. They will not destroy me. They will not win. They want a show, I'll give them a goddamn spectacle. The decision to take action wasn't a conscious choice. It was a primal certainty. I would not just call off the wedding, I would expose them, every lie, every deceit, in the most public and humiliating way possible. The planning and preparation phase began that very night. My tears dried, replaced by a steely determination. First, I meticulously screenshotted every single incriminating message from Logan's phone. The texts with Kate, the texts with Kim, any financial details I could find. I backed them up to the cloud to a USB drive, emailed them to a new secret account. Evidence. Next, I needed allies. Sophie was my first call. Her reaction was a satisfying explosion of fury on my behalf. That two-timing low-life scum-sucking. And Kate, I will end her. Sophie was immediately on board, her creative mind already whirring with ideas for the takedown. Then the hardest part. I found Kim on social media. Her profile picture showed a tired but kind-looking woman with a small boy who had Logan's eyes. My heart ached for her son. I sent her a carefully worded message, introducing myself, explaining briefly that I was engaged to Logan and had discovered some disturbing things. I attached a few key screenshots. Kim responded within an hour. Her message was a torrent of pain, anger, and weary validation. Logan had drained her emotionally and financially for years. Yes, they were still legally married, though separated. He rarely saw Jacob and was chronically behind on support. She'd been trying to find leverage to force him to be accountable. This was it. She agreed to be there on the wedding day. I also did some digging into Logan's parents. He'd always been vague about them, claiming they were very private, retired abroad. A little online sleuthing revealed they were very much in the country pillars of their small-town community, known for their integrity. I sent an anonymous, carefully curated package of evidence to them, timed to arrive a few days before the wedding. The next few weeks were an exercise in Oscar-worthy acting. I played the blissful, excited bride-to-be. I gushed over wedding details with Logan, even complimented Kate on her glowing complexion, saying she looked so happy lately. Every smile, every touch, every loving word I feigned was a twist of the knife I was preparing for them. Little did they know I had been documenting everything, every lie, every stolen dollar. The anticipation for the confrontation was a live wire thrumming beneath my skin. The truth would soon come to light in the most unexpected and spectacular way. They were planning a wedding. I was planning a reckoning. The wedding day dawned bright and sunny, a cruel mockery of the storm about to break. Our chosen venue was a stunning historical landmark, its grand ballroom meticulously decorated for a fairy tale wedding. My fairy tale wedding bought and paid for with my stolen dreams and $70,000. Guests were mingling, champagne flowed, and a string quartet played softly. I stood in the bridal suite, not in a haze of romantic bliss, but with the cold, sharp clarity of a general about to command a battlefield. Sophie was with me, a fierce glint in her eyes. "Showtime, darling," she whispered, squeezing my hand. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, my expression serene, my heart a steady drum of resolve. Logan stood at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in his custom tuxedo, a smug, possessive smile playing on his lips. Kate was in the front pew, dressed as my maid of honor, looking radiant, a little nervous, and to my discerning eye, undeniably pregnant. She kept glancing at Logan, a secret triumphant smile on her face. The officiant began the traditional vows. When it was Logan's turn to speak, he paused dramatically. Before I say my vows to Erica, he began, his voice ringing with false sincerity. "There's something I need to share, something that has changed the course of my life, our lives." A hush fell over the room. I saw Kate straighten, a flicker of eager anticipation in her eyes. This was her moment, she thought. Logan continued, "My heart. You see, while I care for Erica deeply, has been irrevocably captured by another. Someone who has shown me the true meaning of love, of passion. Someone who is carrying my child." He turned his gaze, locking with Kate's. "Kate, my darling, it's you I want to build my future with. It's you I truly love." Gasps rippled through the guests. My parents looked utterly aghast, my mother's hand flying to her mouth. Kate stood up, tears welling in her eyes, a beatific smile spreading across her face. She took a step forward, ready to claim her prize. "Logan, oh Logan," she cried, reaching for his hand. This was my cue. "Actually, Kate." I said, my voice calm, clear, and carrying easily. Through the stunned silence amplified by the officiant's microphone, I subtly gestured towards. "I think you'll find Logan has a few other prior commitments he's forgotten to mention." All heads swiveled to me. Logan's smile faltered confusion clouding his features. Kate froze mid-step. "Erica." "What are you talking about?" Logan blustered, trying to regain control. "I'm talking about Kim Logan," I said, my voice like ice. "Your wife." As if on cue, the grand doors at the back of the ballroom opened. A woman with tired eyes but a resolute expression walked in, a small boy clutching her hand. "Kim." "That's right, Logan," Kim said, her voice trembling but firm as she walked towards the altar. "Your wife. And this," she gestured to the little boy, "is Jacob. Your son. The one you haven't paid child support for in 6 months. The one you abandoned for this." She swept a hand around the lavish ballroom. The shock reactions were magnificent. Logan's face went white, then a mottled red. Kate looked like she'd been slapped, her jaw dropping. My parents were speechless, their faces a mixture of horror and disbelief. Guests were murmuring, phones subtly emerging. And Kate? I continued, turning to my sister, whose radiant glow had vanished, replaced by a ghastly pallor. "Pregnant with his child. How wonderfully convenient. Especially since you were both planning to use my $70,000 to fund your wedding after I was humiliated at the altar. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about your disgusting little plot? Did you enjoy trying on wedding dresses on my dime?" I held up Logan's forgotten phone. "It's amazing what people leave lying around and what they text to each other. Adultery, fraud, conspiracy. It's all here." The power dynamics had completely reversed. I was no longer the duped bride, but the orchestrator of their downfall. Logan spluttered, This is a misunderstanding, Erica. You're hysterical." "Am I Logan?" I asked sweetly. "Or am I finally seeing clearly?" Then another set of figures appeared at the doorway, an older, distinguished couple. Logan's parents. Their faces were grim, etched with shame and fury. Logan Carmichael, his father's voice boomed, cutting through the chaos. "We received a package. A very enlightening package. Is this how you conduct yourself? Lies, deceit. Defrauding innocent women. You are no son of ours." His mother was openly weeping. "We raised you better than this." To think. Our name associated with such filth, Logan looked like a cornered animal. His carefully constructed world was imploding before a captivated audience of over 100 people. Our friends, family, his former business associates. The public humiliation was total. Kate burst into tears, a pathetic wailing sound. "Erica, I don't know what to say." "He tricked me. He told me he loved me." "Save it, Kate," I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You were so eager to step into my shoes, my life. Well, now you can have him. What's left of him anyway." My moment of triumph wasn't loud or aggressive. It was the quiet satisfaction of seeing their masks ripped away, their true ugly selves exposed to the world. Justice wasn't just served. It was a 5-course meal, and they were choking on every bite. Sophie stepped forward, addressing the stunned guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears there will be no wedding today. However, Erica invites you to enjoy the champagne and canapés. Please celebrate her freedom and newfound wisdom. As for these two," she gestured to Logan and Kate, "I believe security will show them out." The venue's security, pre-alerted by me, moved discreetly towards Logan and Kate. Logan, utterly defeated, allowed himself to be escorted away, his parents following their voices, low and scathing. Kate, sobbing uncontrollably, stumbled after them, the beautiful maid of honor dress, now a costume of her disgrace. I stood tall, the weight of months of deception lifting from my shoulders. The string quartet, after a moment of stunned silence, seemed to take Sophie's cue, and after a quick, bewildered conference, struck up a surprisingly upbeat, almost defiant tune. Some guests, initially shocked, began to clap, then to cheer. My father finally found his voice, stepping towards me, his face pale but his eyes filled with a dawning, horrified respect. "Erica, I had no idea." My mother just stared, tears streaming down her face. Karma didn't just come for them, it brought an entire army, and I, Erica, had been its conductor. The grand ballroom moments before a stage for my humiliation transformed into a bizarre, surreal party. The wedding was definitively off, but the champagne continued to flow now, fueling astonished conversations, and for some expressions of solidarity for me. The immediate consequence was chaos, but a chaos from which I felt strangely detached, watching it unfold as if from a distance. Logan, Kate, and Logan's devastated parents were gone, escorted out through a side exit to avoid further spectacle, though many guests had already captured their ignominious departure on their phones. I could only imagine the social media storm brewing. My parents were in shock. My father kept repeating, "I can't believe it. Kate." And that man, he looked at me with a new troubled understanding. My mother was a wreck, oscillating between silent tears and whispered apologies directed at no one in particular. How could she? How could this happen? Their carefully ordered world where Kate was the cherished innocent and I was the predictable backdrop had been violently upended. Kate, before being fully ushered out, had tried one last desperate plea. "Erica, please, you don't understand. I love him." Her face was tear-streaked, her mascara running the picture of pathetic desperation. Love. I'd replied, my voice steady, betraying none of the lingering pain. "You don't know the meaning of the word Kate. You and he deserve each other. Now please leave. You've caused enough damage." My boundary was set firm and unyielding. The years of quiet resentment had solidified into an impenetrable wall. Sophie was my rock fielding questions from bewildered guests, managing the dismantling of the wedding and ensuring I had a protective bubble around me. Surprisingly, several of Logan's supposed business acquaintances, after witnessing his downfall, approached me not with pity, but with a kind of grudging respect, some even offering discreet legal contacts who specialized in fraud. It seemed Logan had a reputation I was only just discovering. Unexpected allies emerged from the woodwork. My Aunt Carol, my mother's usually reserved sister, came over, hugged me tightly, and whispered, "You did the right thing, Erica. You are stronger than all of them." The attempts at damage control from the antagonists were predictably pathetic. Later that evening, after I'd escaped to Sophie's apartment, my phone buzzed with texts. Logan sent a string of rambling, contradictory messages, first threats of suing me for defamation, then pleas for forgiveness claiming Kate had manipulated him, then back to blaming me for ruining his life. I saved them all, then blocked his number. Kate sent a single tearful voicemail. "Ricky, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I don't know what I was thinking. Please, can we talk?" I didn't reply. The time for talk was long past. The short-term changes in family dynamics were immediate and seismic. My parents were shell-shocked. The ride back from the venue with them, Sophie drove my car, was mostly silent, punctuated by my mother's stifled sobs. When we got to their house, my father finally said, "Erica, we owe you an apology for so many things." It was a start, but the chasm that had been revealed was vast. I knew it would take a long time, if ever, for any semblance of trust to be rebuilt with Kate, or for my relationship with my parents to find a new, healthier equilibrium. For now, space was what I needed most. Emotionally, I was a strange cocktail of exhaustion, vindication, and a lingering, deep ache. The triumph was real, the justice satisfying, but the betrayal, especially from Kate, had carved a wound that wouldn't heal overnight. Sophie let me cry, then rage, then dissect every moment, every lie, until I was emotionally spent. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The first call I made was to a lawyer Sophie had recommended, a shark specializing in financial fraud. The battle was far from over, but the war for my dignity had been decisively won. I initiated legal proceedings to recover my $70,000 armed with a mountain of evidence. Kim, I learned, was doing the same, pursuing Logan for years of unpaid child support and alimony. The wheels of justice were turning, and I felt a grim satisfaction. This wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my power, my narrative. They had tried to write me as the tragic fool. I was rewriting myself as the survivor, the victor. 3 years. That's how long it took for the dust to truly settle, for the echoes of that disastrous wedding day to fade into a manageable hum, and for my life to not just recover, but to bloom in ways I'd never anticipated. My transformed life began with reclaiming what was mine. The lawsuit against Logan was messy, but ultimately successful. His attempts to counter-sue for defamation were laughed out of court, especially when presented with the overwhelming evidence of his con, his bigamy. Though not legally pursued as such, his marriage to Kim was irrefutable, and the conspiracy with Kate. I recovered the full $70,000 plus damages and legal fees. It wasn't just about the money, it was the principle. Each dollar returned felt like a piece of my stolen self-respect being restored. Professionally, the notoriety of the runaway groom scandal, as some local blogs had dubbed it initially, worried me. But my hotel group stood by me, impressed by my resilience and the strategic way I'd handled the crisis. Within a year, I was offered the general manager position at their flagship luxury boutique hotel, the Serafina. I poured my energy into it, and the Serafina quickly became the city's most sought-after destination, winning national awards. My success was no longer a quiet internal victory. It was recognized, celebrated. The karma delivered to the antagonists was detailed, and I admit deeply satisfying to witness from a distance. Logan Carmichael was left disgraced and financially ruined. Kim's lawsuit, combined with mine, bled him dry. His parents, true to their word, officially disowned him, cutting him off from any family support or inheritance. His reputation as a crypto investor was shredded. He was exposed as a small-time grifter who got lucky a few times before his schemes caught up with him. The last I heard, he was working a string of low-paying jobs, constantly looking over his shoulder and facing potential further legal troubles for other, smaller cons that came to light after his public downfall. Justice wasn't just served, it was a 5-course meal he'd be digesting for a long time. Kate's life took a different, though equally challenging trajectory. She had her baby, a little boy. Logan, true to form, was an inconsistent presence at best, offering little financial or emotional support. She found herself a single mother living back with our parents, the rustic, chic dreams replaced by the harsh realities of Pampers and midnight feedings. The diner job became her lifeline, not a whimsical stopgap. Our parents, humbled and perhaps guilt-ridden, supported her, but the dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The golden glow around Kate had dimmed considerably. She attempted apologies to me several times over the years, tearful phone calls, long, rambling letters. I listened sometimes, but maintained my distance. Forgiveness is a complex journey, and I wasn't there yet, though the burning anger had cooled to a wary detachment. Kim, I'm happy to say, thrived. With the significant back payments and ongoing support she finally secured from Logan, enforced by the courts, she was able to provide a stable, loving home for Jacob. She went back to school, got a degree, and started her own small business. We kept in touch sporadically, a strange bond forged in the fires of Logan's deceit. She found happiness with a kind, decent man who adored her and Jacob. My family dynamics underwent a profound and necessary overhaul. My relationship with my parents became more honest, if initially strained. They had to confront their decades of favoritism, and I had to learn to articulate my hurt without expecting them to magically transform. There were difficult conversations, tears, and eventually a new, more balanced understanding. They finally saw me, Erica, not just the capable, self-sufficient daughter, but a woman with her own needs and vulnerabilities. They started celebrating my achievements genuinely, if a little awkwardly, at first. With Kate, the relationship remained fractured. The betrayal was too deep. We were civil during rare family gatherings for the sake of our parents and her son, my nephew, but the easy sisterly bond of our childhood, however imbalanced, was gone forever. I built new, stronger support systems. Sophie remained my steadfast confidant. I also cultivated new friendships, people who knew the strong, resilient Erica from the start. I took up hobbies I'd never had time for. Pottery, ironically, I found I was rather good at making non-lumpy mugs, hiking even a disastrous but hilarious attempt at salsa dancing. I traveled, explored, and slowly, surely rebuilt my trust in myself and cautiously in others. I even started dating again this time with my eyes wide open, my intuition finely tuned. There was no rush. My happiness was no longer contingent on a romantic partner. Reflecting on the journey, the lessons were stark but invaluable. Trust your gut. Red flags are red for a reason. The most elaborate deceptions often prey on our deepest insecurities and desires. And sometimes the most profound betrayals can lead to the most powerful reclamations of self. What goes around doesn't just come around, it multiplies for better or for worse. In the end, the truth didn't just set me free. It rebuilt me stronger, wiser, and more authentically myself than I had ever been. So what's the deep morale of this roller coaster of a story? It's not just about a con artist, fiancé, and a backstabbing sister. It's about the quiet strength that resides within us, often forged in the fires of being overlooked or underestimated. It's about recognizing your own worth, even when those closest to you fail to see it. It's about understanding that sometimes the most devastating betrayals can become the catalysts for your greatest transformations. And it's definitely about the undeniable truth that karma has a way of delivering precisely what's ordered, even if it takes its sweet time. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something was off, but you dismissed it? Have you ever poured your heart and soul into people who didn't deserve your loyalty? What did you learn from it? I genuinely want to know. If you've ever been the forgotten child, the underestimated colleague, or the one left picking up the pieces after a devastating betrayal, drop a comment below and subscribe. Let's build a community where we lift each other up. Share this story if you believe that everyone deserves to have their truth heard and their strength celebrated. And if you, like me, believe in the profound power of reclaiming your narrative. Hit that subscribe button if you're ready to hear more stories of triumph over adversity, of justice served, and of building an extraordinary life from the ashes of deceit. My journey taught me that true validation comes from within. It's not about the applause from others, but the quiet, unshakable belief in your own resilience, your own integrity, and your own capacity for happiness. Never let anyone dim your light or define your worth. You are the manager of your own life, the author of your own story. Make it a bestseller. Thank you for listening. There are more stories to tell, more lessons to share. Stay tuned.